chosen one. Someone tried to carve out your destiny and wear it as their own, but their theft triggered a terrifying revelation. They pushed against the door of your life with force, expecting weakness, only to find a power they couldn't categorize. They now realize what you actually are, and they loathe how scared you make them feel, because your very existence exposes their hollow imitation. You were watched, not casually, not with admiration, with calculation. There is a specific quality of attention that people with this kind of intent direct at you, and you have likely felt it at some point. Questions that reach slightly too deep, interest that carries a hunger beneath the surface, compliments with a strange aftertaste, as if the words were doing more than one job at once. That kind of attention is never innocent, and it is never random. What was being observed was your path, the specific, unrepeatable direction your soul is walking in this lifetime. And what made this particular person dangerous, what separated their envy from ordinary jealousy, is this: when people like this see something they want, the first question they ask is never how to earn it. The first question is always how to take it. The jealousy was not only about where you are right now, it was about where you are going. Your elevation was being felt before it even became visible to you. The blessing that was building in your atmosphere was detectable to someone who watches these things, and that awareness of something magnificent moving in your direction made this person desperate in a way that ordinary jealousy simply does not produce. Desperate people make reckless decisions, and this person made the biggest one of their life. What this person wanted is stranger than simple rivalry. They wanted to swap their shadow with yours. Your shadow is not the dark part of you. Your shadow is the complete accumulated record of your soul, every experience, every hard lesson, every scar converted to wisdom, every version of you that chose to keep going when quitting was the easier path. Your shadow is the fingerprint of your entire existence. It belongs to you the way your soul belongs to you. It cannot be cloned, cannot be transferred, and cannot be cut away and placed over someone else's life. This person did not know that yet. And that specific arrogant ignorance is exactly where their unraveling began. What was being gathered slowly, quietly, over a sustained period was intelligence about you specifically, how you respond to pressure, whether difficulty breaks you or builds you, who you love, who you trust, and who you allow to get close. Those details were filed away carefully, not out of any genuine interest in your well-being, but because closeness is leverage to someone operating with this kind of intent. Your momentum was tracked. Every time something good moved in your direction, the observation intensified. Every time you grew quieter, stronger, or more settled in yourself, that development was noted and catalogued. Not everything that felt like friction was accidental. Some of what happened, the setbacks with strange timing, the relationships that soured without a clear cause, the moments where something simple became inexplicably complicated, some of that was early-stage interference, low-level, probing, testing, to see what would stick and what would not. None of it stuck the way it was supposed to. That fact alone tells you something significant. This was not someone who tries once and moves on. The persistence, the escalating commitment, the increasing desperation, all of it is the signature of someone who expected to find a gap and kept hitting solid ground instead. Every attempt to destabilize you produced the same result. You came back to yourself. You returned to center. You kept moving forward with a steadiness that should not have been possible if the interference was actually working. That steadiness is precisely what drove the escalation. Every cycle of frustration produced a more aggressive approach. The eventual decision to bring in outside help was not a show of strength. It was the clearest possible admission that nothing attempted independently had worked. Genuinely powerful people do not need to hire someone else to do what they are incapable of doing alone. That decision was born from exhaustion, not from confidence. What collided with your protection next was desperation wearing the costume of strategy. And desperation, when it meets what is covering your life, destroys itself from the inside out. Outside help was recruited. Not the kind anyone asks friends for, the kind paid for in cash, in secrets, in things no one would want documented. Someone was found who presented as a practitioner, someone with a reputation and the confidence to look at the situation and say, yes, I can reach into the invisible world, I can rearrange things, I can redirect what is building for someone and send it somewhere else. The assignment was accepted without hesitation. That immediate, unexamined confidence is the first thing worth examining. A practitioner who is genuinely experienced, who actually understands the territory they operate in, does something specific before accepting an assignment involving another soul. They look first, they assess, they read what they are actually dealing with before committing to anything. An experienced operative does not advance toward a target without first understanding the terrain they are entering. This one skipped that step. The existing reputation was too comfortable to question. The track record felt too clean to doubt. The assumption that this particular job would be routine was never challenged. If you felt called by this message, hype this video so other chosen ones like you can be reached. Pay close attention to that choice. Because the moment actual assessment happened, the moment assuming stopped and seeing began, everything changed for every person involved. Before that moment arrived, the plan appeared to be in motion, and the confidence on your enemy's side was high. Results were expected. And here is where you may recognize something from your own experience during this period. Sleep that felt less like rest and more like sustained activity. Mornings where an unusual heaviness had already lifted and been replaced by a clarity you could not fully explain. Moments where something inside you went very quiet and then something else went very alert, without an obvious external reason. That was not anxiety, that was not stress, that was not imagination running loose. Your inner system was detecting something before your conscious mind had language for it. The part of you that is built to perceive movement in the invisible world was already awake, already paying attention, and already responding to what was approaching. And something else was already responding too, something that had been present long before the attempt was even conceived. When the practitioner moved toward you with full intention and made actual contact, or rather attempted to, what happened next is the kind of event that people who operate in this world rarely discuss openly. Not because it is common, because it is rare enough to be genuinely disorienting, even for the most seasoned practitioners. Most people, even people with real gifts, even those with genuine spiritual capacity, are accessible at some level. There is a way to reach them. It may require significant effort or resources, but an access point exists somewhere. You were not accessible. There was no way in from the direction this approach came from. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet, videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, so let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. And when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Consider what it feels like to extend a hand toward a door you have every expectation will open, and instead of opening, the door pushes back. Not with passive resistance, with a force and a presence so far beyond what you prepared for that your hand is retreating before your mind has even processed what just happened. That is what the practitioner encountered when they moved toward you. Something was already present on your behalf. It was not surprised by the approach. It was not reactive, not defensive, not performing a response. It was simply there, immovable, complete and entirely unimpressed by what had been brought against you. And then it revealed itself fully. What the practitioner encountered was not a human defense. It was not something that operates within the rules of the kind of work they were attempting. What appeared was ancient in a way that does not fit into the categories of most frameworks of spiritual practice. The fear it produced was not the sharp spike of ordinary fear that rises and quickly fades. This fear was slower, more complete, the kind that settles into every part of the body simultaneously and communicates one thing without needing words. You do not belong here, you cannot be here, and you need to leave now. Everything the practitioner had set in motion was pulled back immediately, not as strategy, not as a tactical pause to regroup, out of something that felt in the core of every instinct they possessed, like self-preservation. And then your enemy received word that the hired practitioner was completely done, not renegotiating terms, not requesting more resources, gone with a message communicating that you are not what you were described as, and there would be no further involvement of any kind. Confusion arrived first, then frustration, then something colder moved in underneath both of those, because the person who had been counted on as the weapon had laid that weapon down and walked away. The full explanation for why was not provided, because giving the full explanation required describing what had been seen, and describing it would make it more real than anyone involved wanted it to be, so very little was said. And the silence that followed was not peaceful for anyone holding it. What protects you is not proportionate to your daily problems, it is proportionate to your purpose. It was not built to deflect ordinary friction, it was constructed for the weight of the assignment you agreed to before arriving in this body, and that assignment is not a small one. There are people who move through life with protection that handles ordinary disruption, and that is sufficient for most people because most people are operating at a personal level. Their path belongs to them alone, their lessons serve their own becoming, and their impact extends into their immediate world. And then there are people who were sent. Being sent is different from simply arriving. Every soul arrives. Not every soul arrives with a specific charge already attached. Being sent means the purpose extends beyond any single personal lifetime. It means what you carry, the gifts embedded in your specific configuration, the lineage you are connected to. All of it exists for a reason that outlasts one body, one era, one set of circumstances. What guards someone with that kind of assignment is built to match the weight of it. It does not negotiate, it does not perform, it does not warn with dramatics or theater. It simply refuses, with a completeness so total that the refusal itself communicates everything that needs to be communicated. What the practitioner saw when actual looking happened, past the surface of you, past the human exhaustion you carry, past the everyday life visible from the outside, was something with your soul's name written on it in a way that exists beneath language. Something that has been assigned to your soul across iterations, across lifetimes, across the full accumulated record of everything you have ever walked through. It knows you at a level that precedes this body entirely. It has never not been present, and the blessing that is moving toward your life right now carries that same protection. It is not exposed. It cannot be rerouted. It carries the same seal your path carries. Every attempt to intercept it met the same wall that met the practitioner. Wards, you cannot reach what genuinely belongs to someone else's path when you are standing in a position of envy and lack. The intention seals the door before the approach even begins. This person operated with real skill. The reputation was not entirely fabricated, and there was genuine practice behind the confidence, but experience built exclusively against accessible targets tells you nothing about what happens when you encounter something that is fundamentally not accessible. The aesthetic of power had been cultivated with care. Everything was arranged to create a specific impression of authority. A following had been built. Credibility had been established in certain circles. And your enemy looked at that presentation and believed they had found exactly what the situation required. What had actually been found was someone who had mastered a role, but only within the range of what they had previously encountered, and nothing within that range had prepared them for you. Consider what it means to operate with confidence in a territory where every previous target was reachable. You develop a belief, reasonable, evidence-based from your own history, that access is always possible if the approach is right. That belief becomes the foundation of your confidence. It becomes indistinguishable from your identity. It is what you offer clients and what you offer yourself every time a new assignment comes in. And then you reach for something and the reach stops completely cold, not because of a barrier you can study and eventually work around, because of a presence that makes the entire premise of your approach irrelevant, not a harder lock to pick, an entirely different category of reality. What was intended was an experienced practitioner reaching an ordinary, struggling person. What actually occurred was that same practitioner stumbling directly into the presence of something ancient, specifically assigned, and completely uninterested in entertaining the attempt. Your enemy paid real resources for a result that never came. The practitioner severed the arrangement entirely, walking away from any future association with the situation. That exit was not negotiable and not reversible. What had been encountered was not something to approach again. The description of you that had been provided was incomplete. The surface of you, the quietly enduring, weight-carrying, humanly tired version of you, was all that had been handed over. What was not described was what lives beneath that surface. What was not mentioned was the guardian. What was entirely omitted was the truth of what you actually are. Handing an incomplete description of a marked soul to a practitioner, too confident to verify the details, is not a strategy. It is a detonator with no one qualified to hold it. It detonated completely on everyone who was holding it. You have wondered about yourself, perhaps for as long as you can remember, and certainly across more than a few quiet moments in recent seasons. You have wondered why things land differently for you than they do for people around you. Why you feel what others walk right past without noticing. Why you see beneath the surface of situations before anyone else has named what is actually happening. Why you have come back from genuinely difficult things that should have ended your capacity to keep going, and arrived on the other side, not just intact, but somehow clearer, deeper, and more rooted than you were before. You have wondered whether you were simply wired unusually, whether the sensitivity was circumstantial, whether the resilience was just stubbornness given a better name, whether the pattern of strange protection around your life was coincidence stacking itself into something that only felt meaningful. None of those explanations are sufficient. None of them actually fit what is true. There are souls that arrive into a life, and there are souls that are sent into one. The distinction is purpose. Some people are here to walk their own path, learn their own lessons, and serve their immediate world, and that is not a lesser thing. It is the majority of human experience, but some people arrive already commissioned, already carrying something that belongs to a purpose larger than any single lifetime can fully contain. You are the second kind. You were sent. Being sent comes with something attached to it. What guards a sent soul is not standard issue. It is proportionate to the weight of the commission. It does not flinch at ordinary interference, because it was not built to manage ordinary interference. It was built for something with considerably higher stakes than the average human life. What the practitioner encountered was that coverage operating at full strength. What shook them was not only the power of it, it was the age of it. The specific, unmistakable quality of something that has been assigned to the same soul across multiple existences, building, deepening, and strengthening with each return. Something that carries your soul's actual identity, not the name on your documents or the face visible in any mirror, but the identity that persists across every version of you that has ever arrived here. Your soul was described to this practitioner as a tired, struggling human being having a difficult season. What the practitioner actually found was the full, unfiltered truth of an ancient commission, protection that has been accumulating since before the traditions this practitioner operates within had even developed their names. Your shadow is not simply the accumulation of this current life, that is the complete record of a soul that has been walking the same essential assignment across time, in different forms, in different contexts, always returning to the same fundamental purpose. That depth is not separable from the protection assigned to it. You cannot lift the silhouette away from what guards it. The moment a reach was made for it, the guardian turned around and looked directly at the one who was reaching. What looked back was the full history of what you are, the full weight of the commission compressed into a presence so complete and so final that continuing to push against it was simply not a rational option. The exit was immediate, and it was permanent. When committed, resourced interference is directed at someone who is covered at the level you are covered. The interference does not simply dissolve neutrally when it fails. It returns to its point of origin. Not always in a single dramatic event, and not always in a way that is immediately visible, but it returns thoroughly with the same force it carried on the way out. The stagnation that existed in this person's life before any of this began has now calcified. The very conditions they were hoping to escape by rerouting your destiny in their direction, the lack, the feeling of being overlooked, the internal sense of something crucial slipping out of reach, none of those conditions have improved, they have compounded. The energy directed at taking from you came back and settled precisely on the one who sent it. Every forward movement now encounters resistance that cannot be explained through ordinary logic. Plans that should proceed simply do not proceed. Alliances that were expected to hold are showing fractures. The hired practitioner is gone and will not return. And the inability to identify a clear cause for any of it is the most psychologically destabilizing part of all, because when you can name an obstacle, you can attempt to work around it, but when things consistently fail without an identifiable reason, the foundation beneath your confidence begins to dissolve. That is exactly where this person stands right now, isolated, holding the wreckage of a plan that fell apart at every level, facing the very conditions they tried to use you to escape, but now with less support, less credibility, and the specific unshakable weight of having activated something they did not understand and cannot undo. At some point during the watching, the planning, and the hired attempts, a suspicion began forming on the other side. Not a suspicion about whether the plan would ultimately work, a suspicion about whether you already knew something was happening. Not the specific details, not the precise mechanics, but whether your awareness was already activated, whether you were actually as oblivious to the movement around you as the entire operation depended on you being. That suspicion changed the energy of the whole situation. The strategy required you to be unaware. An unaware target is a reachable target. Interference is designed to land on someone who cannot identify what is happening and therefore cannot consciously or instinctively resist it. The gap between what is being done and what the target perceives is the entire leverage point of that kind of operation. But you were not behaving the way someone in the dark behaves. There was a quality of steadiness in how you were moving through your life, a calm that was inconsistent with someone being genuinely destabilized. Your forward momentum was not being interrupted the way it was supposed to be, and that inconsistency started generating its own kind of fear well before the practitioner had even reported back with findings. But you were not doing anything conscious to signal awareness, you were simply being what you are. And what you are produces a specific inherent quality in how you move through the world, a groundedness that is not performed, a refusal to be destabilized, that is not an effort you make but a fundamental fact of your nature. To a watching eye, looking for signs that interference is landing, that quality reads as protected. It reads as someone who is, inexplicably, simply not available to be reached. Questions began accumulating without good answers. For someone whose entire operational confidence depends on understanding and managing every variable in a situation, encountering a variable that cannot be identified or explained is catastrophic. You were that variable. Your very nature disrupted their calculations before anyone had even launched a formal defense. By the time the practitioner made full contact and encountered the truth of your protection, your enemy was already operating from the hollow feeling of someone who suspects they have made an enormous and irreversible mistake. The practitioner's retreat confirmed that suspicion completely, and without a single word of direct explanation. The fear your enemy is living in right now is not the manageable kind. It is not the fear that comes from being caught doing something wrong. That version has a familiar shape that people know how to navigate. You apologize, deflect, wait for the intensity to fade. That kind of fear is uncomfortable, but it eventually moves. What is sitting in your enemy right now does not move. This is the fear that comes from realizing you went after something capable of a response that you cannot quantify, cannot replicate, and cannot protect yourself from if it ever decides to respond in kind. This fear lives in the body before it lives in the mind. It does not respond to logical reassurance because its origin is not logical. It is visceral, physical, the direct memory of having encountered something operating in a category beyond your own. Your name and the presence of your guardian are now permanently fused in your enemy's inner world. Every time your name surfaces in any context, that image comes with it. Every time a thought begins to form about any future action involving you, the memory of what was encountered stops that thought before it can fully take shape. That is not something they can manage or reframe or eventually recover from with enough time and distance. What was seen fundamentally restructured their understanding of what you are, and that restructuring is permanent. For someone who built an entire identity around winning the invisible battles, around being the one who gets what they want through unseen means, having that identity shattered by a single encounter with what guards your life is existentially destabilizing. It introduces a specific kind of doubt that does not stay contained in one area. Once it is present, it bleeds into every other corner of their confidence. You did not engineer any of that intentionally. You did not design their dismantling or orchestrate their fear. You simply exist as what you are, and what you are does not accommodate interference directed at it from a position of envy and malicious intent. The loathing they feel is the direct result of the fear they cannot control. The fear they cannot control is the direct result of finding out what you actually are. The title of this is not an exaggeration. They genuinely loathe how scared you make them feel, and you accomplish that by doing nothing more than being exactly yourself. That is the most significant understanding to carry. Your power in all of this required no demonstration. It required no retaliation, no performance, no fight. Your existence alone was sufficient. Your natural, unbothered presence was the thing that dismantled their confidence completely and permanently. The interference has cleared, the hired practitioner is gone and will not return. The alliance is broken, the plan lies in pieces, and the elevation that was building toward your life this entire time, the very thing they were so desperate to intercept before it arrived, keeps moving, unobstructed now, clear, moving with the full force of something that has been carefully guarded and is now making its final approach toward its rightful destination. There is a blessing with your name on it, a genuine one, not a small improvement, not a modest shift, something significant. Something the divine has been holding close, not to withhold it from you, but to protect it from exactly the kind of interference that was just attempted and failed completely. Consider what it means for a valuable delivery to be guarded in transit. When the destination is known and the route is being monitored by someone with harmful intent, the delivery does not stay on the obvious path. The path gets changed. The delivery moves through protected routes, kept quietly close, until the moment it arrives in the hands it belongs to, at which point interception is simply no longer possible. That is what has been happening on your behalf. The elevation has been in transit, navigated toward you by what is assigned to guard your path, which is considerably more capable of protecting it than anyone sent against you was capable of disrupting it. The timing of everything that broke open is not coincidental. The attack escalated when it did, because the elevation was becoming detectable. The desperate final push was a response to sensing what was building around you, a last attempt to get ahead of something before it fully arrived. The complete collapse of that attempt represents the universe clearing the final obstacle from the path between you and what is already yours. Every delay you experienced was protection, not punishment. Every door that closed was a reroute, not a rejection. Every season that felt like stagnation was simply the conditions being aligned so that what is yours could arrive at a version of you fully capable of receiving it, standing in it without being destabilized by it, and using it for exactly what it was always meant to be used for. You are that version now. The preparation has completed. The path ahead is clear. This is where you receive your charge. You are not walking away from this as someone who barely made it through. You are walking away as someone whose path repelled a serious, resourced, committed attempt at interference and kept moving forward without losing a single thing that was actually yours. Those are fundamentally different positions to stand in. One of them shrinks and looks back over its shoulder. The other expands and faces forward. Choose the position that reflects what actually happened. Stop apologizing for your light. The era of dimming it so that people threatened by your brightness can feel more comfortable is over. That was never your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be the full expression of what the divine built when it designed you, and everything less than that is a waste of the assignment you arrived here carrying. Stop waiting for external permission to grow. No one who benefits from your limitation is going to stand up and invite you to exceed it. The expansion is yours. The authorization is yours to give yourself. You do not need to wait for a better moment, a cleaner circumstance, or a version of yourself that feels more completely ready. You start from where you are standing right now. Stop second-guessing the favor. When things begin moving for you, and they are already in motion, resist the old habit of examining whether you truly deserve what is arriving, whether it will hold, or whether something is waiting to pull it back. Receive what comes cleanly. Let what is yours land fully, without holding it at arm's length out of fear that it might disappear. Take care of your environment with authority, not anxiety. Move through your home, your work, and your daily life with deliberate intention. Clear what needs clearing. Protect your clarity, your voice, and your ability to see what is real without distortion. Do all of it from a position of ownership, because you are not someone guarding against an ongoing threat. You are someone maintaining the quality of a life that is already protected. If you have been experiencing disrupted sleep, unusual heaviness in your waking hours, or the feeling of having worked through something in your rest without a clear memory of what it was, that is your system completing a natural clearance process. What was sent toward you and returned has been moving out. Let it finish moving. You do not need to analyze every sensation or assign specific meaning to every fragment. Allow the clearing to complete itself and then stand fully upright. What is arriving requires someone standing upright and open-handed to receive it. Your silhouette is not a flat image. It is not a surface that can be lifted away and relocated to a different life. It is the living, ancient, specifically commissioned expression of a soul with an assignment attached to it, and what guards it is not a barrier to be overcome with enough skill or enough resources. It is a presence with no interest in being moved, no vulnerability to the approach that was attempted, and no version of the situation in which it steps aside. That knowledge now lives permanently in everyone who participated in the attempt. It cannot be reasoned away or dismissed with enough time and distance. What was encountered when your life was approached with malicious intent left a mark that is simply part of what those people know now. You did not have to do anything for that to happen. You did not have to fight, retaliate, announce yourself, or perform your power for any audience. You simply continued to exist as what you are, and what you are handled itself without requiring a single conscious action from you. Your enemy is sitting in silence right now. Not a silence they chose, but the silence of someone who exhausted every available move, watched every available ally walk away, and is now sitting inside the full weight of their own decisions with nowhere to redirect the consequence. And you are here, chosen one, unbothered, undiminished. Everything that was always meant for you is completely intact. The favor is moving, the elevation is approaching, the protection has never been more fully confirmed than it was by the failure of everything brought against it. You did not survive this season. You moved through it without losing a single thing that was actually yours, because nothing that is truly yours can be taken from you. Not by this person, not by anyone they could have hired, and not under any conditions they could have created. The shadow thieves came for your silhouette. They found out it is alive, ancient, and guarded by something they were never cleared to approach. They have left. The path ahead of you is clear. You have somewhere to be. Go.